Hi, my name is Jay Swanson, and this is Paris in My Pocket's guide to how the do I get around Paris. That was a little bit aggressive, but you understand what I mean. In this video, we're gonna discuss tips and tricks on how to get around, save some money. What are the best apps? How should I get around? Why should I get around? Where should I, just moving on. The metro used to be my favorite way of getting around town. I absolutely adore the metro. Coming from small town USA where we didn't have basically public transportation to a place where they've got an underground train system, it's magical. Now I prefer to get around above ground by bike. It's my favorite way of getting around town. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the metro is still fantastic. And if you'd like an in-depth look at how to use the metro, I have a video on that, which I'll link to above. But there are some things that have changed since I made that video. And so we should probably do a few quick tips and tricks on using the metro. Because of course you're gonna use it while you're here. Why wouldn't you? One of the first major differences is that they're doing away with paper tickets. And while you can still buy them one at a time, you can't buy them in bulk anymore in the very famous carnet 10. My recommendation is going to be to get a Navigo card. And there are two types of Navigos that are available for tourists that I would recommend. Mine, the one that I actually use on the regular, is called the Navigo Easy. It enables you to top up 10 at a time at a discount and just use those rides as you go, or 20. You can even do it in the app on the phone, which I talk about in the 25 tips video if you want to check that out. If you're the type of person that wants unlimited travel for convenience sake and just to make sure that you can get around without having to think about it, you can top up your Navigo Découverte for a week at a time. Unlimited travel all the way up to 5 zones, so you can get out to Versailles and Disneyland and not have to worry about it. The way you do it is you go up to the ticket window back there. They'll sell you one of the cards for a couple euros and top it up at the same time, and then you're good to go. And of course, if you need to top it up any further, you can use one of the little ticket kiosks next to it. Automated kiosk will top up your Navigo for you as well. Or you can always go back to the service window. They're very nice, and they tend to speak English. It's a good way to go. I wish they had it all under one system, but unfortunately at this point they don't. It's multiple cards and you're just gonna have to figure it out as you go. But Navigo Easy for the hop on, hop off, just 10 rides at a time, or the Découverte for unlimited, a little more convenient though. Another couple quick notes on the metro. It is safe. There are cops wandering around all the time, but there are pickpockets, and the hot spots for pickpockets tend to be at the turnstiles, like they'll move in behind you, so just be careful of your stuff then. And also in the press, like on the metro itself, sometimes things get a little bit tight, and yeah, just keep an eye on your stuff. Otherwise, petty crime's about as far as it's gonna go. It's a wonderful system. Highly recommended. One last helpful tip, and this is a really good map for it. We're under the Arc de Triomphe. In case you don't know where you want to end up, like let's say you want to end up on the Champs-Élysées and you're worried that you're going to end up at Grande Armée instead, look at this map and you're going to see the numbers associated with the exit to come out. So if you want to come out on the Champs-Élysées, take exit 1. It's going to be a long walk though. And my recommendation is usually to come out exit 2, Friedland, or exit 3, Hoche. But either way, you're going to end up coming above ground without doing as much walking underground, and to a phenomenal view.
I ride my bike, I roller skate, don't drive no car. I ride my bike.
The RER is basically the metro for the greater Paris region. I wouldn't recommend it for anything outside of getting to and from the airport, Disneyland, and Versailles. Unless of course you're doing a little bit of hunting for castles in the region. I have a video about that too. But you are gonna have to load up your Navigo Découverte up to Zone 5 in order to do that. Or if you're just doing the hop on, hop off stuff, you're gonna wanna buy separate tickets to get out to the farther zones because your metro ticket's not gonna cover it. You're also gonna need your metro ticket or your Navigo to get back out of the RER, where with the metro you can just walk on out. One last thought and a really important note about the RER, if and when you do use it, is that the end of the line is always changing. These guys fork as they get out of Paris. So as they run through Paris, they run the exact same route, but as soon as they get outside, they go different ways. So make sure you're paying attention to the end of the line as it will change, and that determines which train you should be getting on. Because if you get on the wrong train, you might end up going way outside of Paris in the wrong direction, and you're gonna have to come back and try it all over again. So do pay attention to that. It'll show it on the maps, some of the digital displays, as well as, in front of the train itself will have a 4-letter code that coincides with where it's going. Important stuff to know. While we're on the escalator, let's also talk about escalator etiquette. Stand on the right, walk on the left. Don't stand on the left, don't stand in the middle, and if you're gonna walk on the left, don't stop at the top. I hate it when people do that. People always stop at the top as if they don't have anywhere else to go. And here I am checking back out of the RER. Whoa, made it, no penalty. Buses. I'm not personally a big fan, so it's not something that I'm going to recommend you do, but there are a couple of lines that you can take that are a little bit more scenic than others. The rest of the time, on most bus lines, you're going to find yourself just sitting in traffic between tall walls without a whole lot to see, except for, you know, people walking by faster than you're rolling. It's one of the reasons that they kind of frustrate me. However, one of the cool updates that I really love about the buses now is that you can actually text a number, which I'm going to put on the bottom of the screen, with the name, well, the number of your bus as it approaches. Text that number, get a text back that operates as a ticket, and in case you get stopped in a control or a ticket check, then hey, you've got a ticket on your phone and everything should be good to go. You make sure to hit the little stop button on the bus to get off at your stop ahead of time. They won't necessarily stop for you because they won't know where you want to go. Biking is personally my preferred way to get around the city. And with all the new bike lanes, it's increasingly safe and accessible to go pretty much anywhere. And you get the priority over cars all over the city, which is fantastic. I've done multiple videos on how to ride safely in Paris, as well as how to use the velib system if you want to give that a try. We struggled pretty hard to get into it, but it's been improved since then. And yeah, it's obviously the world leader. I mean, the velib system was the first bike sharing system in the world, and while it's not quite as smooth as it once was, it's improved. And they have electric bikes as well. So if you are going to use velib or one of these ride sharing systems, there are probably a couple things that you should know. One piece of advice is that whether you're using like velib or a ride share, formerly known as Jump, now just Lime or Uber, double check the condition before you take the bike. They suffer a lot of abuse and aren't always in the best condition. You might want to make sure that the tires are pumped and that the chain is on and that the brakes work before you commit to taking it out for a really long ride. And then you have fun, but try not to abuse it yourself too much.
And definitely don't be this guy, whoever did this. Don't leave these here, especially not the velib. That belongs in a docking station. What the heck?
One other thing to be aware of when it comes to the velibs is that because you have to return them to these docking stations, you got to make sure that there's actually space for the bike when you show up. And for the most part, you're going to find space, but there are some neighborhoods that are more popular end destinations than starting destinations, which means that you're going to end up with a lot of bikes and maybe not so many parking spaces. The app will tell you whether or not there are parking spaces available, so I would just say look for that in advance. Also, you're going to see some blue and green bikes. The blue bikes are electric bikes, so if you want a little extra kick, especially to get back up to Montmartre, which is one of those places that there are always parking spaces because people like to ride downhill, but not so much uphill, take an electric bike up the hill, you should find yourself a parking space. Also, this is infamously the world's trickiest roundabout, so if you're on a bike and you don't feel like going through it, I go through it all the time because I kind of love it. But if you want to not go through it, stick to the very outside or go one road out. You'll see dedicated bike lanes running around the ring that goes around the Arc de Triomphe and cars that honk at you when you stand in the road to talk to the camera because they don't have a sense of humor. And thanks, of course, to today's patron producer, Debra Lesser. Couldn't do it without you. Couldn't do it without my patrons who make all of this possible. If you want to support the channel, patreon.com/Jay Swanson. It's the place to do it. The scourge of the streets, scooters. Well, you may be very familiar with these already. Oh, that didn't work. I wonder if that's how these things keep falling over, is people like me keep sitting on them. Ride shares, like scooters, these scooters, you can practice these at home if you want before you come. Lime is very prevalent. The cool thing is with Lime and now Lime/Jump bikes, you can rent a lot of these things through Uber if you already have Uber, so you can just use one account, which is really handy, and then bounce around town. They're kind of expensive. Actually, they're very expensive as far as getting around town, but they're a lot of fun. They're also really dangerous. The main thing that I would say is please park them responsibly. This is a designated location which you can use, and it's a prime one. But I would also say, just be really careful. Use the bike lanes, don't go on sidewalks. It's actually illegal to go on sidewalks. You could get fined for that, as well as it's kind of dangerous and the sidewalks are crowded already. Also, the cobblestones are gonna bounce you around a little bit. So keep both hands on at all times and have fun. It is a really fun way to go. Oh, one more thing. Do whatever you're gonna do as you feel. It's illegal to have more than one person on a scooter at a time, technically, so you could get a fine for that. So just be aware of that. Have fun, do what you're gonna do. I'm just saying, they have a whole campaign going right now. I've seen posters all over the city. 2 people on a scooter, finable offense. Puppy on a scooter? I'm not so sure, actually. You wanna go on a scooter? No, probably too dangerous for you. We'll try it anyways. You might be excited to know that Uber exists here in Paris because it doesn't exist in every city around the world. But if you're a fan of ride shares, it is here, as is its competitor Free Now, which does basically the same thing: ride sharing, scooters, bikes, kind of everything. So if you get one or both of the apps, you're going to be able to rent all kinds of stuff to get around town in all kinds of different ways. Highly recommended that you give both of them a try, because then you can do a little bit of a comparison on their pricing. But of course, if you get your account set up while you're home, it'll be ready to go as soon as you touch down here in Paris. Of course, however, I would recommend using a taxi to get out of the airport because it's a flat rate and you're not gonna have to worry about finding where your driver is picking you up. Walk straight out of the terminal, you'll find the queue just waiting for you outside, and then you hop into a taxi and it's a flat rate in the mid-50s, depending on which side of Paris you're going to. I'm not gonna say how much it is right now because it's probably gonna change by the time you see this video, but it's really handy to know as well, because once you know what that flat rate is for sure, on your return trip to the airport, you can look and see, do I wanna use Uber or do I wanna use a taxi, based on, which rate is better, because you'll know. A couple other notes about taxis that are really important to know. First off, make sure that they actually have like the little sign on top, a meter running on the dash, that they're legit when you get in. Don't just hop into some random guy's car as you go, because that does happen. I have a friend that did that recently. Be careful getting into taxis. Make sure they're a real taxi. You're also gonna wanna ask up front if they take cards, if you're not gonna be paying with cash, because some of them don't take cards and only take cash, and it's good to know up front. Otherwise, you're gonna end up hunting down an ATM for a while, and that's never any fun. You don't have to tip if you don't want to, and yeah, hop in, hop out, get around town. It's a good way to go. I will say though as well, there's a concerted effort to reduce car traffic in Paris, which is making congestion worse, which means that you might end up stuck in traffic for a long time. So taxis can be really good, Uber as well, especially if you're out late having some drinks and you don't want to get yourself home. Totally makes sense, but just be aware that depending on traffic, you could be stuck for a while. And I wouldn't underestimate the importance of getting in walking shape. You're gonna put in a lot of steps on your trip to Paris. Even if you're using all these modes of transportation, you'll be surprised how much you walk. Well, this has been Paris in My Pocket's guide to how the f do I get around Paris. Hopefully it was helpful. If you need any more in-depth looks at how to use any of those modes of transportation we talked about today, I've done a bunch of different videos on most of them, which are linked in the video or in the description. And of course, thanks to my patrons who made all of this possible. Really appreciate you guys. If you want to see a longer version of this video that I ended up scrapping because it was too detailed, you can check it out over on Patreon. They have access to that. Also, if you want the best guide to Paris, all the tips and tricks you need with recommendations to eat, drink, just get around in general, then head on over to parisinmypocket.com to get the only guide you need to Paris to have the best time possible, guaranteed. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoy the next one, or all the other ones we've made. Go check them out. See you next time.